It's great to be with you. We didn't speak after the Richmond debacle, and I guess the Melbourne performance was slightly more uplifting, but we've seen this movie before, a bit of a response, and you think maybe things have turned and then it falls to pieces again. So we won't get too excited with that. There's a lot to digest though, Drew Jones, considering how disappointing the Richmond result was and the fallout from that. And there are some positives to take out of the Melbourne game, but a lot to analyse over the last couple of weeks.
Hello, mate. Nice to be with you. And my apologies. I'm the reason that we haven't done the podcast up until now. And I feel like, a bit of the sting obviously comes out of a couple of losses with the, we get a little bit of time to digest it all. But I've got to be honest, I've been bitterly disappointed with obviously the last 5 games or whatever it's been, but particularly the last couple of weeks. I didn't think we were that good against Melbourne. I thought they played poorly, and obviously was extremely disappointed with the Richmond game. And it felt to me really awful at the time. And the response from the club, I found that quite interesting. We were combative, but there's no way that internally they were as disappointed with the loss as we were externally. And just straight off the bat, I just wanted to hear your thoughts. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, it's hard to really know. I guess the Elliot Yeo interview is the one that stands out. And then there's, McWalter's press conference, I guess. The Richmond game feels like a bit of a line in the sand. That's when everyone said, all right, well, we've got some problems here and the pressure's on the coach now and this is not good enough. And my personal point of view is the team they've got some mental issues. They're mentally fragile. And no matter what you say about game plans and skill errors, until you fix them above the shoulders, nothing's really going to change in the manner that we like. That's my personal view. It feels to me a bit like, Melbourne 2013, 2014, when they got Paul Roos in purely to fix the culture and then worry about the rest after that, because you're not going to get anywhere until you actually fix the mindset of this playing group. That sort of feels like for West Coast now after 5 years of terrible seasons and so many heavy losses. And I think that's the feeling of the fans that's coming out. So when you hear Elliot Yeo come through and say we're not in a rut, and McWalter talk about positivity, it grates a little bit. That doesn't mean that they're not having hard chats behind closed doors, and credit to Yoey, after doing that interview, he then came out and spoke in the press conference and corrected himself a bit. But I think that's where some of the frustration has come from.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I just thought that Richmond loss I blame the coach. I think with the players that Richmond had out and the quality of young players we have, and the fact that Yeo and Kelly and Waterman, despite being accurate, are having a good season, I thought we had to get that win. I thought that was on the coach. I thought the St Kilda loss was the players, and I was happy to blame them for that. And so, I found that quite frustrating, and I thought we were poor early against Melbourne. We gave them a cushion, and then, we fought harder after halftime, but the game was gone. So, there's a lot. There's a lot that's disappointed me the last couple of weeks.
So on the coach, I'm not saying that Andrew McWalter is not the right man for West Coast moving forward, but I think the microscope on him now is fair. And we've raised this point numerous times, haven't we? Does he have the aura and the leadership quality to take this group where they need to get to? And I think he knows the game exceptionally well, no issues there. But that came to light, I think, after the Richmond defeat again. So I think those questions are justified, and John Longmire's name's being thrown around a lot, especially now that Carlton have a vacancy, and a lot of Eagles fans are going, well, we're going to miss out on him now if the Blues go for him. He's got a big 4 to 6 weeks coming up now, Andrew McWalter. We've got games against Essendon, Port, North, all at home, then the bye, and Carlton away. If he doesn't come out of that run with at least 2 wins, I think it's really fair to raise the question about whether he'll be there next season.
Based on what evidence would we think that we would win any of those games? If we can't,
I think we can beat Essendon at home for sure, and I think we can beat one of Port, North or Carlton. I'm not saying we'll win all three of them. I don't know who. I think we can win 2 out of those 4. And I think that should be the minimum expectation.
Yeah. I mean, after the first few rounds of the season, I would have said absolutely we can beat Essendon, we can beat Carlton, we can beat Port. But I struggle to have too much faith in our ability to win any game if we can't beat Richmond at home with 27 fit players. But
yeah,
ultimately, I think there would be a slight shift from McQualter, the young coach with the young list, towards okay, we need to see something better than this. And I think Damien Hardwick defended him on 360 and said the second year's harder than the first.
Yeah.
And maybe we raised expectations slightly in the first 3 games because North and Port actually aren't bad sides. So they turned out to be quite impressive wins. And so credit to the players for that and credit to the coach. But what's gone on since then has been unacceptable for mine. So, yeah, this is a big block, a big year for him. I don't know if it's too early to be talking about whether he's the right man. But this is an unusual situation in the AFL industry where there are premiership coaches and there are highly credentialed coaches who are available on the market. And there's a world where West Coast have to make a decision about are they risking those guys getting jobs and missing out on someone who could take the club forward.
Yeah. And I think the club will be patient and I think that's justified and back Mitty in, and so they should. But he's got to – no one's saying that you have to win a certain amount of games, but we've got to see a bit more progress now. We thought we'd turned that corner, and the loss to Richmond is one thing, but there's been 200-point smashings in there as well. So the mentality of the group doesn't look like it's shifted enough. And that's kind of what you want to see. And, yeah, you look at Richmond and they lost to Adelaide by how many points on the week? 4 goals or something in the end, 4 or 5 goals when they might not even be able to field the team this week. They might have to get top-up players. That's already been mentioned. That's the situation they're in. So we want to see that every single week, not just against Melbourne week. Well, I knew a response was coming against the Ds. You could see it. But hopefully that is the case each and every week. And there is the possibility that will be the case because I saw something switch in Andrew McQualter after the Richmond game. I know you've spoken about the post-match media stuff being a little bit soft, and fair enough, but I thought on 360, when he was grilled by Gary Lyon, I liked seeing a bit of fire in him. I liked seeing him get his back up and give it back a little bit. That's what we want to see from our coach. That was better. And I think I've seen a couple of things in games since. In the Richmond game, he looked hugely frustrated, banging the desk a couple of times. And then there is a moment in the Melbourne game, Drew, when you can clearly lip read him, and he's giving it to Liam Duggan, end of the first quarter. After Duggo gives a hospital ball back to Ruben Jinby, he gets wrapped up, holding the ball. They kick another goal from the free kick when they went on that run. The game was virtually over after that. And then he admitted that he challenged the leaders at quarter time. I think we've seen a little switch in Minnie. And maybe that will be what we need to just have a bit of fire put up this group week in, week out, not just when they want to give a response after being smashed in the press and by the fans after an embarrassing result, but actually each and every week.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And just to clarify, I liked what Minnie did on 360. It was more commenting on the fact that we were quite defensive. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. The club believe in the direction they're going, and they felt obviously the reaction was over the top, and they want to defend their players and their team, and I respect that. And yeah, hopefully we see more of it, to be honest. We need to see more fight. I mean, we talked about this the last time we spoke, is that we need to see the players tip in and put their heads down and heads over the footy, be physical in the contest and stay in games for longer and fight harder. So hopefully we see that, starting with GWS and moving forward. And we haven't been helped by this Harry Edwards situation, and it's just so I feel upset for Harry, and I feel frustrated for the club we're again in this situation where we're potentially losing an important player due to medical reasons.
It's such a shame. Mate, you can actually see the impact that he can make in those 10 minutes before he went off with the concussion against the D's. Like up on the wing, couple of big contests. You went, wow, this is what it's like having a proper key defender in our team, because Tyler Young's probably been underwhelming, let's be honest, and that's maybe being a little bit polite. Ruben's shouldering the load on his own. It was like, all right, he's got someone else there now alongside him, Ruben. And he doesn't have to be playing that key defender role on his own. You could see it. And then he's off with another concussion. Now we're worried about his future. Hopefully it's not too bad and he's back soon, because we need him desperately. But I wanted to ask you, and it just sucks, and when our hearts go out to him, and it's such a disappointing situation. Wanted to ask you about the Duggan situation, though, because you can see McWalter's patience is starting to run a bit thin. He's been the whipping boy from the fans. We've defended him purely because he's a premiership player. You can see he's trying his backside off. He's the captain of the club who's desperately, trying to get the team up. But his own form is dwindling in a massive way. His disposal confidence is way down, and he's not doing a whole heap defensively. They could have a big decision to make when Brandon Starcevic comes back. I mean, there could be a situation where the captain is dropped. I mean, that must be going through the minds at the moment.
Yeah, and I think right now we've got to a point, and maybe we've been there for a while. He needs to just be considered at the selection table as a player and not as a captain. So he needs to be picked on purely on merit, whether he deserves to be in the 23. And Starcevic is probably 2 weeks away. Been watching him on the training vision a little bit that we get here at Fox, and he's looking fit. Hopefully that calf holds up. But yeah, it's getting close to that time. Really close.
Yeah, and Tommy Cole's form's actually been decent in the last couple of weeks. So he's kind of deserves a spot over Duggan at the moment. The problem with Duggan is, where else can you play him? Like, I thought, why not play him as a defensive forward, but he's probably not quick enough. So that's not going to quite work. I don't think he's got the legs to run in the midfield anymore, and his disposal's not strong enough. His only role that he can play, I think, is as a lockdown defender, and I think they're trying to use him more in that role at the moment. Lindsay coming through means, he's not getting as much of the ball to be our outlet from defence, with McCarthy there as well. But it just doesn't seem like he's imposing himself enough on contest defensively either.
I would actually, if you send him back to the waffle, I would redeploy him as a forward, because we're short in that area due to injury. And I think we've got to try something. And even if it's just an experiment, for a few weeks in the waffle, get your head around it and then come in and play that role and see how it goes. I would like that idea. But it's not working down back, and there's no point playing in midfield. So for me, it would be, can you have a role when the ball hits the ground inside 50, when Shanahan and Archer Reed and Waterman are bringing the ball to ground? Can you do a better job of helping us lock it inside 50? Because our inside 50 numbers haven't been terrible.
No.
But we want to be a better forward half team and lock the ball in. So that's just an idea. It's not working anywhere else. So, I'm putting that one out there. I've got a few things I want to ask you, Garby. So, first of all, in the mid-season drafts, do you think we now have to take, whether it's Jacob Blight or whoever the best key defender is out there, is that we just have to take them?
I think so. They're looking at a key defender clearly, and that makes sense, especially with uncertainty over Harry Edwards. That has to be the move. I think we both agree that Sandy Brock isn't really a long-term option for us. I'm keen to see Bazzo get a go. Shanahan's been so poor the last 3 weeks, like really poor. And we love him. We think he's going to be a superstar, but he's been completely uncompetitive. So does he go down back now? And can he play at the moment in the zone that he's in one-on-one, or is it only as a zone-off defender, loose man? My feeling is the latter. I don't think he can play one-on-one at the moment because he's not competing as a forward. It's going to be a struggle to get him competing as a key back. He needs a rest probably, or to get some confidence up at waffle level. So we're short there. I really hope Bazzo gets a go, but there's a guy called Pearce that they've mentioned. I've seen him mentioned. Apparently Blight is not really in the mix, the former Richmond defender. But they've got to go for a key back just to give us another option down there.
Yeah, I'm only going off a Duff editorial and SEN, which he did. He threw up Blight's name, but whoever it is, I'm not going to pretend that I know the lower leagues really well. But I feel as though we have to bring someone in to give them a crack. I don't see Brock being the answer going forward. So there's at least one backup spot available on the list, and then we have to reassess things at the end of the season. The next would be for a team that is crying out for a culture change, experience, leadership. How hard should we be going at Paddy Cripps if we weren't already in conversation?
Yeah, I think we should be. I think priority one, though, should be Lachie Neale. You know, that's the only issue I have with the Cripps discussion is not Cripps at all. I think it'd be exactly what we need, a ball winner and a great leader at the club. It's a no-brainer other than Lachie Neale being the priority. And then you got to look at it, okay, well, can we go for both? Can we work both into the team? You know, if we're going to have a crack at Chad Warner the year after, are there going to be too many experienced guys? Are there going to be enough midfield spots when you got Reid and Dersma there as well? That's the only thing I've got to question, Drewy, whether we go for both or whether we make Lachie Neale a priority. If Lachie Neale is a viable chance, it's all eggs in that basket for me because you get the leadership stuff as well and a pure A-grade midfielder is actually in the best form of his life at the moment, just about. And that's not, you know, he's won 2 Brownlows, so level with those seasons, but he's playing as well as ever. And Cripps is not really, but we could use his ball-winning ability and his leadership. So that's the only caveat that I'd provide on that.
I think that Cripps sits well in our midfield. I don't think he suits the modern game, but I think it works in our mids. I would have his leadership and culture stuff, I would have that slightly ahead of Lachie. But Lachie is clearly a better quality player in the AFL right now, both dual Brownlow medalists and both absolute superstars. So, the hope is we'll see one of them in West Coast colours next year. And that I think that would just take a bit of pressure off everyone. So I'm hopeful that's the case. I think that Nathan Broad's going to be a West Coast player next season, sounds like.
Yeah.
It would make a lot of sense to have, great character, great person, and he's been a quality medium defender for a long time. Of course, he's not absolutely at the peak of his powers, but I think given our situation, it makes a lot of sense for him to come to the club. So I think there's a couple of names for you. Cool. And yeah, we're in this situation now where if we can furnish everything with a couple of youngsters through the draft, that things might look a little more competitive, round 1 next year, which is good. Yeah.
There's still guys we need to work through on our list as well and work out if they've got a future or not. I was interested in Harvey Johnson's game on the weekends. He's an interesting player. Like, he doesn't get massive numbers at the Waffle, got his chance. And I saw something on one of the Eagles' social media pages that it resonated with me straight away. Someone said he's not a player who gets great numbers, but he looks like he would be comfortable at the higher level. And he actually has always looked like that, Harvey. Like, whenever he's been asked to play AFL footy, he's been pretty composed, pretty smooth moving, decent skills. Didn't get a lot of it against Melbourne, but whenever he was around the ball, you went, okay, there's something there, which is what we thought about him when he first played in 2024. And then you look at someone like Jack Hutchison, who also got to go, and you think, well, he's got the physique, he's got all the attributes. But those two things that Harvey's got, composure and skill, I'm not sure Hutch has. I was like, if you could fuse them both together, you'd have a quality AFL player. Like Hutch's physique with Harvey Johnson's composure and skills. At the moment, both of them they're just not really adding much. Like, Hutch can play in so many different roles, but he's not delivering. And he just doesn't have the build, I think, for a number of positions. They're trying him as half forward. I like that. It doesn't seem like he's got the running capability or the physique to play in the midfield. He just seems a bit slight. So I wonder if they're going to stay in the team. Obviously, by the time people listen to this, the team will probably be out. But they're going to rotate through a number of these guys, I think. We all want to see Gross in. Hewett will get another go soon. Finn McRae probably gets a crack at it at some stage. A lot of these guys are going to be rotated between now and the end of the season.
I wanted to ask you about Hewett. So there's Cal Toomey's doing a bit of reporting around Victorian clubs coming with 4-year contract offers for Hewett, etc. To me, that's probably just a bit of padding from managers to try and get Eagles deal bumped up a little bit. Because if you're a Victorian club, like realistically, would you really want to sign up Elijah, on reasonable money for 4 years? Like he hasn't shown us much, and the body's been a bit unreliable. But I wonder if a stint in the waffle, just purely playing on ball, get the confidence up, like that feels like the right move, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, he had big numbers in the waffle last week, and that's what they've done with him. And, does he come straight back in? We'll have to wait and see. Or is he given another week there to really get the confidence to a high point? Maybe. I'd love to keep him at the club. He's had a disappointing year. He's had injury problems. I know he's been underwhelming in terms of what we think he can be, but he's such a smart guy. Like, he just seems like he's got such a good head on his shoulders. And when he does get it all together, I think we all saw it a year or two ago when you listen to him speak and you think this guy is a future captain of the club. He's got to be playing at a high enough level for that. But if he can put it all together, I just think he could be a massive asset for West Coast moving forward. So, yeah, I really hope we keep Elijah, but he's just got to find a way to nail his spot down in the team, and the waffle move will hopefully bring the best out of him. The signs on the weekend in that sense were really good. Fans are frustrated because Tom Gross is not getting a go. He's dominating in the waffle every week but can't get a call-up, and it just seems as if they only view him as a one-position player right now, which is an on-baller, and that he's not going to obviously take out a Yo or Kelly or Reed or Dersmer at the moment. So he's having to bide his time. I think they've got issues with his defensive side of his game, and he needs to increase that. But he's laying some big tackles there in the waffle. I just want to see him in the team. I think he could play at half forward. I know he had to go there last season and didn't quite nail it, but I just think he's playing so well at the moment. He's got big upside. Just get him in the team. He's dominating every week at the lower level.
Yeah, I think they'd dearly love to have a spot for him in the midfield, but perhaps they feel the balance will be too far one way if they slot him in with the current midfield mix. Like Kelly and Yo are playing well and they're both fit, and that there was no guarantee going into the season that either of them would be in the side on a regular basis. So I guess he has to be a little bit patient for now. I would like to see him come into the team and play as a midfielder, like as an on-baller. And I know you're saying we should get him in, just get him in. But I'd just love to see him play as an out-and-out mid. So maybe he just has to be a little patient. I'd be interested to know who currently is ahead. Would they bring Elijah in, or would they bring Gross in to play as the pure mid if a spot became available? And they could push Dersmer back out to a wing and maybe free up a spot if they really wanted to. My last point on Elijah, like I don't think he's leaving. I think we've invested a lot of time into him already, and I reckon he is pretty highly rated still.
Yeah,
despite his struggles, it just feels to me like it's a slower burn than we would have hoped for, and especially because he showed some signs early. But I think I still have belief that Elijah will come good as a B to even A grade midfielder. It's just going to probably come a little later than we want. But I think when we're starting to climb the ladder, Elijah will start to come into his own. So I think the timelines will work out okay.
Let's hope so. Jake Waterman's numbers are amazing. Like, he's the number 2. I tweeted about it on Monday. He's the number 2 score involvement player in the AFL and the number 1 forward in that stat.
Wow.
He's just got to improve his accuracy. He's kicked 18-26. If he had converted 8 of those chances, and that's not a stretch or a massive hypothetical because he's missed some sitters this season, he'd be 3rd in the Coleman. So he'd be 2nd in score involvements and 3rd in the Coleman. He'd be a serious chance for another All-Australian Blazer in a team that's in the bottom 4.
He's not far off. He's not far off exploding and having a really big game. But he's having a good year, looks fit, he's presenting well. So it's been frustrating because there's been times where I feel like his missed set shots have really hurt us. And it's not, it probably wouldn't have changed results in any of the games, maybe the Richmond game. But I just feel like when we've leaned on him really heavily and he's been so reliable with his set shots, it has been a little bit strange. But he's having a great year, even if you're taking the accuracy into account. He's been one of our better players for the season so far. And it's great that I mentioned before, like the senior players are playing decent footy. Like listening to Kelly speak at his press conference during the week about the way he's had to build himself back up, and Yoey's pretty similar. So hopefully we can get it all together, and maybe against GWS, like this is our chance. GWS have been a good team for a long time, as you know. You've covered them and watched them really closely, but they're not the same team this year due to injury and form and a few other things. Like they're a lot more gettable than they've been over the last few years.
I am wary of them though, because I think they've had a really tough draw and some horrible injuries, and I think they're still a dangerous side. They've got some game breakers in Lockie Ash and Finn Callaghan, and I think we need a lockdown on those two. We need Hoffy's game on Cozzy Pickett was sensational, so we need to. I think Hoff's got to go to Finn Callaghan and just try his best on him. And I'd like to see Baker run with Lockie Ash, even if it means Bakes goes forward a bit. I'm not sure who else has got the speed to match him, and those two can cut you open. There are others who are dangerous, and they've got a potent forward line still that I think people are underrating. Cadman looks really good right now. They've got a lot of tall timber there, so we're going to be stretched in that regard. I'm a bit worried about this game. I think they could have their way with us, which they've done a few times recently. I know we're at home, and hopefully we put in a big one, but I think away from home, they've still got more strength. I think they've been a little bit underrated considering their injuries and their draw to start the season. I think they're still going to have a bit of a run. And, I'm a bit worried about this one on the weekend.
They tore us a new one last year, didn't they? They really just obliterated us. It was embarrassing. So let's hope we put up a bigger fight. I think Cadman v Jimby is that's an awesome matchup.
It's a very good battle. Hopefully he can hold his own. And then, there's still got Grzyzewski and Riccardi and Stringer and, Toby will go down there. So I'm not sure our backline can hold up with all of them, unfortunately.
Okay. So you're not confident?
I'm not. I think hopefully we can be competitive, but no, I think they'll be too strong for us. They struggle more at home than away from home, the Giants, because everyone just sits off them at home. They know the way they want to play, running off half back, and they struggle at home. But away from home, teams will try and play on the offense a bit more, and that suits them perfectly because they can just run and gun it out of half back and open the game up. And they're actually a bit more dangerous playing away from home at times. So that's why I'm a bit weary.
Yeah, the way that they play has shown us up.
Yeah,
thinking back to that game last year, I had to turn that off. That was rough. And something that got talked about with Tim Kelly during the week was the amount which they verbally and physically a bit went after Harley in that game last year.
Yeah,
wonder if Harley's better placed to deal with it now. But how we handle him and how we look after him, I think will be pretty crucial because Harley's trying his guts out. He hasn't had as many of the real big Harley moments, but he's having a really good season. I hope that we look after him.
Yeah, well, their weakness is on ball. I mean, Oliver's having a great season and there's Callaghan there, but they lack depth in the midfield. So if we can find a way to match it with Oliver and keep Callaghan as quiet as possible, then we can potentially get on top in that area and hopefully have the game on our terms. But that's a big if, of course. So, the ruck battle will be interesting. They don't have a lot of strength there at the moment. Briggs is out of form. Madden's out, injured. So the selection in the ruck will be interesting. Does Flynn come back potentially against his old side? We just need to find a way to get on top in the middle, and then hopefully we can shut down their line breakers. And then you never know. Looking forward to it, but not overly optimistic, Drewy.
All right, well, Cripps and Neil in the midfield next year, and Taylor down back.
And Warner the year after.
Yeah, all looks good.
Thanks, mate.
All right, enjoy the game, mate. We'll chat soon.
You too. Cheers, mate. Bye.